Hi, welcome everybody to Grow Your Tutoring Business podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at starting your tutoring business. We are going to look at three main points. We're going to look at a business checklist. We're going to look at finding new clients, and then we're going to look at networking. And I know lots of people are going to be switched off by the networking, but stay with me to the end because it's worth every second. Let's run the intro and get straight to it. When we start our tutoring business, or maybe that little bit of time before where we start to consider what it is that we want. Maybe we're looking at moving away from teaching and starting the tutoring business. And there'll be lots of questions. And I know this because I had those questions in my head too. One of the biggest questions I had was, am I going to find enough people who are going to want tutoring? That was really important. That was a big thing at the top. But more than that, there was lots of sort of weird questions going through my head, like what kind of things do I really need to have in place that doesn't cost a lot of money so that I can just start my business? I mean, and in all honesty, what I did was ignore lots of those things in the beginning. Like, do I need insurance? Do I need to change my car insurance? Do I need to change my house insurance? Those kind of things which might niggle at us and be a sort of barrier to start. So let's explore that a little bit more. So what is it that we really need in place? I don't think it's a lot. I think that you can get by. If you're an online tutor, you don't even really need the public liability, although I'm going to suggest you do anyway, because it's pretty inexpensive. And for peace of mind, I don't think you can put a price on that. So know that you've got it in your business, this insurance that you pay, which is relatively cheap. Most of the time, public liability up to £1 million is about £80 a year. And I think even then, sometimes you can even find it cheaper. But public liability and above that can become a little bit more expensive. So, for example, I spend about £120 on public liability, but that's up to £5 million. And the reason I do that is because to work with schools in Kent, where I'm based, the local authority asks us to have public insurance up to that covers up to £5 million. So check your local authority and see how much that costs. And I think for that peace of mind, that's worth every penny. The next thing that I worried about was like things like rejection and failure. Perhaps nobody would want it, or maybe someone comes to me for a little bit and then decide they don't want it anymore. Like, how would I react to that? And I think at the beginning, when I was first moving away from teaching, I wasn't in a good place, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people who resonates with this. Like when you're moving away from teaching, there's a reason why you're looking for something different. Either like your confidence has been sapped, or perhaps you just don't believe in the process or the system anymore, and you're leaving with a bit of a cloud over your head. I mean, even if you're leaving a school on a really positive note, there's still an element of why you're leaving. If it's that positive, why are you trying to find something new? And it's usually because there's something there that's grating against you, maybe something with the ethos of the school or ethos of education in general. And so we take that with us. And so the mindset needs to be worked on. And the mindset really is, for me, is about that fear of rejection and the fear of failure. And I had to work on that. I was quite lucky in that, even though like my nervous system was at that hyper aroused state in the beginning, I'd already done quite a lot of work in therapy. So I went to counselling for quite a few months, and I needed that. I needed to get a lot of things off my chest in a safe space, so that was part of my recovery time. And I feel like that's worth putting out there, because for some of us, we might just be able to pick up like a self-help book, and that guides us to where we need to be. Others might watch things on YouTube or connect with podcasts that they really resonate with, and they can do the exercises that they share and advise. But for others, that won't be enough. And we can get stuck in a very negative cycle of not believing in ourselves, and our self-confidence at an all-time low anyway. And it needs to be worked on. And we need to find a positive way to do that. I like the talk therapy. It's provided a safe space for me to air some views in a really safe way, and it be reframed for me and given back to me. Because that's the thing, isn't it? With our feelings and emotions, like, we have to own them. And sometimes to give it to somebody, for them to reframe and give it back, it just lightens the load. So if you're in a space where you feel like, I'm ready to start this business, but I've got all of these questions, my mindset is quite negative at the moment, and I need help with it, don't hesitate in going to ask for help. Go to your GP or look for local counsellors in your area who could perhaps support you, maybe even in the real short term, so that you can start and I suppose reduce the barrier really. And I want to make sure like I really put the emphasis on like getting the support that you need, because I know that jump from being in a really secure job or secure-ish job with a good salary, because it is a good salary and it's at that kind of level for teachers where the money's not amazing, but it's not poor enough to go, oh, I need to go and find something different so I can earn more money. It's a bit of a trap. And so we need to work on our mindset so we can go and earn more money in the future. Once you've really worked on your mindset, there are still other things that we need to work on and consider. One of those things is how we respond to rejection and failure. And I know that with hopefully, if you've done that work before, that you've got a plan in place that if someone wants to leave your tutoring, how are you going to respond? How are you going to feel? Or you've created a service and nobody's taking you up on that offer, like how is it going to make you feel? And you can acknowledge all of these things and take it on board in a positive way. And I feel like when I first started, the fear of rejection really held me back. And even to this day, there are still things which scare me. And I think that's a good thing now. Now I'm sort of 4 years into, well, almost 5 years now into running the tutoring business, that I want things to scare me. In a place where if things aren't scaring me a little bit, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I'm stagnating. But I wasn't like that in the beginning. Like 5 years ago, when I was first considering this, that wasn't the case. But now it is. So I think that's a testament to where you can, if you're in a place where you are full of fear and anxiety, that over time that will pass as long as you put that work in, and you can get to a point where the fear, you're almost chasing the rejections, you're almost chasing that feeling of being scared, because if you know that isn't happening, then you're not growing, you're not putting yourself in the, well, I suppose out of the comfort zone is the best way to describe it. And so you start chasing it a little bit more. Like, what is it? What's the next target that would make you really scared? What's the next thing you need to include in your business that scares you? And I know for me at the moment, as I'm recording this, it's about recruiting other tutors. That's really scary to me. It's really scary to me for a number of reasons that I've tried before and it hasn't worked. So I'm dealing with all of that in the background. Like, what can I do different this time that I didn't do before? So I'm trying to figure that out. But also, if someone's going to come and work for me, I want them in like my world. I want them to be a part of the ethos of the business that I've created over the last 5 years. And what if they don't like that? What if they challenge it? What's that going to mean to the business? Is something going to change? So there's a lot of sort of scary things around that for me. But I'm also really excited about that, because perhaps that's part of the growth that's maybe going to take me to the next level. So all I'm doing here is reframing that anxiety into something that could be positive, because it might work out. In the same breath, it might not. But my focus of the reframing is, what if it does? What if somebody comes into the business and even only works a couple of hours a week, but they make such a big difference and have so many different perspectives on what I offer and why I offer it, that they could really improve what's happening next. And so I reframe it, and I try to reframe everything. Reframing is a big tool that we could all use. If someone leaves the business, why are they leaving? Is it something I can take and learn and then put something in place for the next client that comes towards me to stop them from leaving? Is there a bit of value that's missing that I need to create? So there's always something that we can take from the negative. If no one books into a new service that I've created, I can look at that in a number of ways. The first one is that I haven't promoted it properly. Perhaps I haven't put it out to the right people. It could be that the messaging is wrong, or it could just be that the service is rubbish and I need to start from scratch. Wasn't needed. And so there's lots of positives that you can take, but it's usually the fear that stops us from putting that out there in the first place. Often I ask myself, what's the worst that could happen? Someone might go, no, that's rubbish, and I can move on. And other times they might tell other people that it's rubbish as well. And that is something that happens in business all the time. Just because you experience a failure, it doesn't have to be a fatal one. And quite often it's not in business anyway. There's usually a reason why something hasn't worked. I want to squeeze in something about pricing, because something that really sort of ran around my mind a lot was, what do I do about how much I charge? Particularly at the beginning, I had no idea about how to price it. And sometimes the market determines how much someone can charge. So let's use like a physical product. I usually go for TVs because I love TV shopping, and get caught up in spending or potentially spending £5,000 on a TV that I don't need. I've never done that, by the way, but I always go and look at them if I am in the market for the TV. But like that product, the pricing of that product is pretty much determined by the market. For example, all the components that make up the TV, it might be that they're in low supply, so there's not a lot of the chips. And you've probably seen something over the last few years to do with computers where some of the microchips there just weren't any. They weren't being able to produce them because they'd run out of the raw materials. And then there was a tsunami that wiped out a lot of the factories that held these components. And so for ages, like some of the computer components were just so expensive because there's so few of them. So it was in high demand. And then, of course, if you're in an actual physical product, even the cost of manufacturing them and building them and shipping them, all of those things have to be taken into account. So there's like a process to it. However, we haven't got a physical product, or it's a service that we're selling. And so pricing can be a little bit weird. And something which I learned a long time ago now was that all pricing is made up. We make it up ourselves. It's up to us what we charge. And with servicing, what we need to move away from, and I'm going to encourage all tutors to do this, is that I want you to move away from selling your time. You're not selling your time at all. What you're selling is your expertise. Parents, when they're looking for a tutor, they're not looking to find something for their child to do for an hour. What they're doing is they're trying to find a solution so that their child can move from feeling nervous about something to feeling confident. And your expertise is going to take them there. Now, your area of expertise and how much you charge is down to you. How much value do you want it to be? How much do you want to give? And then it's up to you to sell that value to the parent. And so we have this kind of scale where you can say, well, my own personal way of putting this into a scale is you have like your primary school tutor. Most primary school tutors, when they're starting out, they'll go, right, I can help you with your reading and writing in Key Stage 1, and I can help with your maths in Key Stage 1, I can help with your reading and writing in Key Stage 2, and your maths in Key Stage 2. So they just try to do sort of everything. Whereas GCSE tutors or tutors from secondary school, they're almost always subject specific. So they're already quite niched down. So if you've got your maths tutor, they're going to go out and offer maths tuition at Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. But the aim is for the child to become more confident in maths, but eventually go on and take a maths GCSE and get a high grade. Whereas at primary school, the tension's not quite this, but we still need to niche down. What are you a specialist in? What do you really love teaching? What's your passion? What do you get really enthusiastic about? And that is what you really want to put out there as a service. But then market it as value-based rather than time-based tutoring. So what does that look like? Well, it can look in a number of ways, but essentially what you're saying is when you're going out and offering a service, you're saying over 6 weeks, it will cost £200 to access this service, or it might be it's 1 hour a week and it's charged at £25 an hour. Now, you can still work out an hourly rate, but the way that we can do it through value-based is that we can up that price quite comfortably over 6 weeks, which is a half term, and people won't really batter too much of an eyelid unless the value doesn't match the cost. And we're going to that's a different podcast when we start looking at values and how we can add the value to your tutoring business. But essentially, it's looking at your business as more than just an hour's worth of tuition every single week. Okay, to the final point, networking, which I know everybody's about to reach for let's change the video, but stick with this because networking is uncomfortable. I feel like I was going to tell a lie and go, it's fine, it's really easy. It's not. And I know it puts us in a weird space because we need to go and talk to people we don't know, perhaps. I feel like the main issue with networking, and if you haven't come out of teaching yet, networking between other schools always just seemed a bit like posturing a little bit. My school's better than your school type approach. And yes, we do this at our school and we do this at our school. And then ends up just being like, yeah, comparisons, and that and doesn't serve anybody. But in the business world, when you're in purpose and you're going there with with a question or with the idea that you're going to learn something, you are usually in a room with other like-minded people who have the same sort of questions you have. And what happens is you become attracted to people. Like this kind of like this law of attraction happens. People you don't vibe with, you end up moving away from. People that you kind of go, oh, that maybe they've asked a question that you wanted to ask and you've got the good answer because they asked it first. You might go and talk to them at the break, or you might go and see them in the evening. Or if you're online, for example, you might ask for their email address or something like that, making a connection. And what happens is we start to talk to people who are quite like-minded, or it doesn't have to be the same industry either. I mean, I quite like the fact we've got this amazing group on Facebook where we've got tutors supporting one another. But it's not always like that. It doesn't have to be in that networking circle. Like I've got people who are in my network who are investors, and they teach other people to invest. I've got other people who are grief counselors who are growing their business as well around helping people with their grief. And so completely different industries, but yet we're growing small businesses, hopefully into medium-sized businesses. So we have similar questions. And so we help each other out. We become accountability partners. We reach out to one another when we're stuck, or perhaps we need some inspiration. And that is priceless stuff, right? And for sometimes as well, I've paid to be part of these groups. There's times when I've paid £10,000 to be part of a group for a year. There's other times I've paid £50 a month to be part of a membership, or £100 to have a one-off coaching session. There's just times when I've needed that support and I've needed to pay for it, but I'm creating my network of people that can not just help me in the immediacy, but actually can be around for a long time after if we can develop the right relationship. So networking, although let's admit can be a little bit uncomfortable, when you go there with a bigger purpose, when you go there with big, strong questions about the future of your life, you can deal with that uncomfortable feeling because you know that you can go through that. I mean, look, if you're not feeling uncomfortable in your business, it's likely you're not growing. So you can deal with that in the knowledge that this is a necessary sort of pain that you can go through. And actually, what I know now is that I've actually really enjoyed those networking events, even though they are a little bit awkward and sometimes, deal with a little bit of uncomfortable kind of squirming in your chair when, doing rubbish icebreakers or doing that rubbish, throwing a bit of paper around the room to get to know each other. We can deal with all of that because the outcome is worth it. Thank you. This is the latest mutterings from me. So I appreciate the fact that you are willing to invest a little bit of in your time to be a part of the podcast. And I really appreciate the fact that there's quite a few who are out there now who are connecting with it. I'm going to be inviting some people as guests soon. So if that's something you are interested in and you would like to put your story out there, please get in contact with me. You can leave a message in the comments. You can leave a message on YouTube. I think my email address is out there anyway, so you can always email me. But if it's something that you're interested in, please get in contact with me. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll speak to you all very soon. See you later.